In this lesson, we're going to have a look at automating tasks using macros and VBA. Now the idea here is just to give you a feel for it, so don't try and take in all the details at this stage, just sit back and relax, and we'll go through those details as we go along further in the course. Now here's the task that we're going to look at automating. Imagine that each day you open up a workbook like you see here, and then you go along to the insert menu, insert a new worksheet, and then in cell A1 you type in today's date, like so. Very simple, but something that we could indeed automate. Rather than having to type it in ourselves, we can write a little macro to do the typing for us. So let's see how we might go about that. Let's just clear what I've done there. Position our cursor any old how, and look at what we have to do first now to record that. Whenever you're going about preparing for a macro, you should do it first manually without any recording, so that you can make sure you've got all the steps correct. It doesn't really matter if you make an error. You can go back later and amend things, but it's a lot more efficient if you do it right the first time. Anyway, in order to record a macro, you go up to the Tools menu, head down to the Macros choice, and select Record New Macro. Gives us some default settings here in the Record Macro dialog box. The macro name is Macro 1. We'll just leave it at that for the time being. And what we'll do is we'll store the macro that we're going to record in the workbook. There's some little default text there, description of the macro, and we'll just keep that as it is for the time being. On pressing OK, we end up with a little recording toolbar there. That shows us that we're in recording mode, and any action we now take from here on will form part of the macro. So again, we want to put the date into cell A1, so we'll just select the cell. That's the first thing to do, and now we'll enter the date. Now I could type the date, of course, as I did when I was showing you earlier. However, that would then be the date recorded in the macro. We don't want the 22nd of April to be put in every day. We want the current day to go in there. Now to do that, we can use a function which you're probably familiar with. If we go Insert Function and move down to the Date and Time section, there's one function there, if you scroll down, called Today. Clicking that, OK, OK again there, it inserts that function into cell A1. So now whenever this macro will be run, we will get the current date. There is still a problem, however, and that is that subsequently when we open this file, that date will continue to be updated to today's date. The idea is we want a timestamp to let us know the date that that sheet was added and the date that the data contained on it refers to. So we need to set that now to that value to stop it being updated continually to the current date. And we can do that in Excel by copying the cell, and the Edit menu and select Paste Special. We can select Values and go OK. Right, and just to turn off the selection there, I'll press the Escape key. Alright, so you can see now there we've got a date in the formula bar, and rather than a function. So that means that whenever this macro is run, we will get it updated to the current date, and that date will then remain static after its insertion. So that really completes our macro now, so we'll press the stop recording button, and that's it. The next step now is to test the macro out. So let's test our macro out now. I'll just delete the information from the cell that I've just filled in there. Now to try out the macro, we can again go to the Tools menu, into the Macros area here, and we'll select the first setting there, Macros. You'll see also there's a shortcut that we can use, Alt plus F8, to access this particular dialog box. Opening that, it gives us a list of all the macros contained in the workbook. There's only the one just created, Macro 1, which is the one we'd like to run. It's a simple matter of pressing the Run button. And there we have it. Today's date has been placed in cell A1 as desired. The only thing though is it's not actually linked to the creation of a new sheet. If we create a new sheet now, insert, we have our new worksheet appear. We press Alt and F8. There we have it. So we now press the Run button there, and we have the date again. So it's taken us still a couple of steps to get what we want. So now the next task will be to have the date appear automatically at the time that we create the new worksheet. To do that, we'll have to take a bit more of a look under the hood of Excel, and that is by going to the Visual Basic editor, the VBA editor. Now the menu method to access that is to go down on the Tools menu to Macro, and then on the drop down menu you'll see Visual Basic Editor. The shortcut key equivalent there is Alt F11. That's a pretty handy one to remember. Anyway, we'll click here, bring up the Visual Basic Editor, and there it is. On the left here we have the project window, the project explorer, and on the right the code window. What we're interested in now is this section here of our file. Here's our file, test2.xls, and any code that we create as part of a macro using the macro recorder, as we just did, gets put in module 1 here. If I double click on that now, it brings up the code listing. So this here is what we'll be learning more about as we go through the course. At the moment though, we don't need to concern ourselves with the details. It's been created automatically for us, and we've verified that it works correctly, and that's all we need to know really. But what we want to do now is set this up so this code is run automatically each time a new sheet is created. So that's a very simple thing to do actually. All we need to do is select that code with our mouse, and we'll just copy that. Then we move down to this area here, this workbook it's called. So any code we stick in this workbook area affects the current workbook that's open. Now what we can do, we'll go to this drop down box here and select workbook, and what we have now is a subroutine that will operate when certain conditions are met. This particular subroutine that's appeared here at the moment is the workbook open subroutine, and this will, any code we place in here will execute each time the workbook is opened. Not what we particularly want at the moment. We're interested in the code executing when a new sheet is inserted. To find the relevant statements, we just move over to this drop down box here. It gives us a list of all the possible subroutines we could use for this particular workbook. Moving up the list, you'll see there's the new sheet subroutine, so we'll just put that in there. Gives us the statements for that particular property. This one here, the open workbook, we can delete that one. Moving up there between the statements, we can paste in our code. And there we have it. So we'll save that now. Close the editor. And we're back in Excel. So we'll give it a test. Insert worksheet. And indeed, a new sheet's been added, and there's today's date already included. One more test we should do though, we should check that on subsequent days we get subsequent dates inserted as designed. Now to do that we can cheat a little and change the system clock on the PC. Double clicking on the clock in the taskbar, we'll change it to the 23rd of April. And now, there we go, sheet 11 has been inserted on the 23rd of April. So it's all functioning as planned, and as you can see, quite a time saver of quite a repetitive task.